Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
Her fingers were tracing the cracks in the bench paint like it was a map to something. She'd circled back to June again. Wanted late June for the wedding. Said the light made everyone look golden. I remember thinking it was such a Bryony thing to say. Not just because she loved summer, but because she loved how it looked on other people. I was 26, coming off a 30-hour shift, still wearing my scrubs, back pressed to the peeling green slats outside Riverside Park. Bryony Court sat beside me, full of color and ideas, rattling off dates and dress codes like it was a party she'd already thrown in her head. Before we start, tell us which city or country you're listening from. Let's see which corners of the world we've gathered from today. Thanks. And now the story. She had a Pinterest board open on her phone, linen suits, backyard string lights, a band that could do jazz and Motown. I told her I didn't dance. She smirked and said she'd handle it. That was her rhythm. She handled things, made them sound easy. And I believed her, every time. I said a courthouse wedding would have been fine by me. Simple, clean, no catering bill. But she waved me off. "You'll thank me when the pictures come in," she said, tapping a shot of someone barefoot at golden hour, holding champagne and not a care in the world. Ansel had texted me that morning. Friday dinner at my loft. Bring B. Just that. My older brother didn't waste words unless it helped a sale. He was 31 and ran some artsy watches and design boutique in downtown Columbus. Knew every dealer, every curator, every word that made people spend money without thinking. He'd always been that guy, the one with better shoes and cleaner timing. "Did you ask him to be your best man yet?" Bryony asked. I shrugged. Figured I'd wait until he offered. She laughed, soft and quick. "You're sweet, but terrible at sales." That stung more than it should have, but I let it pass. I told her about Dr. Crane, my attending. He was strict, no nonsense, taught me early to separate my feelings from my knife hand. "Surgeons with baggage kill people," he'd said straight-faced. Bryony squeezed my arm and told me I was doing fine. That meant something coming from her. Money came up. It always does. She joked about how her friends would revolt if we didn't get a real photographer. I said I could grab a few extra weekend shifts. "We can afford one if I live in the on-call room till next April." She kissed my cheek and told me I was adorable. That's the word she used. Adorable. My dad, Malcolm, had emailed the week before. Something about papers that needed notarized and put somewhere fireproof. I hadn't answered yet. Probably some insurance nonsense. He was always labeling jars and envelopes like he was prepping for a storm no one else could see. We walked back toward my apartment after that, past a boutique on 5th, where Ansel sometimes placed pieces. Bryony slowed at the window. She tilted her head at this bronze dial watch. "It's gorgeous," she said. I saw the tag, just over 1900, and kept my mouth shut. I figured maybe one day I'd surprise her, that maybe I'd find the money, the time, whatever it took. That night, I sent my mom a photo of Bryony's ring. Sapphire. Modest, but clean. Mom replied with 3 heart emojis and, "Proud of you, kiddo." I sat there holding the phone, feeling 10 feet tall, like I was finally building something that'd last. If you'd asked me that night what could go wrong, I'd have said traffic. Or maybe weather. Not people. Not trust. Not the quiet, invisible crack opening under both of us, slow and steady like rot in the floorboards. Ansel's loft sat over a converted bakery that still smelled faintly like cinnamon rolls if the wind blew right. He opened the door barefoot, holding 2 wine glasses like stage props, and didn't even pretend to look at me first. His arms went straight to Bryony. "Look at you," he said, holding her back to get a good look like she was a painting he'd just appraised. "Wow, B, that jacket's perfect on you. Come in, come in." She laughed, stepped inside like she belonged there. I followed, already sweating in my collar, the only one still wearing shoes. His place was exactly what you'd expect from someone who once told me industrial ceilings were honest. All brick, steel, and open space with couches that didn't look meant for sitting. Music played low, something with no lyrics and too many instruments, the kind of thing that makes people feel cultured without knowing why. Dinner was already plated. Hanger steak with roasted carrots, 2 sauces I couldn't name, and a bottle of Bordeaux on sale claimed he got at cost. He says that a lot, at cost, as if you should feel lucky just breathing the same air as his discounts. Bryony lit up when he asked about her new gig designing floor plans for that modern craft show. They started swapping names, curators she'd just met, buyers he already knew, a gallery owner in Soho who once hosted him during a wild summer. She leaned forward, laughing. He leaned back, confident. I reached for my wine. "Still on nights, Dave?" he asked suddenly, like he hadn't asked me the same thing in his last 3 texts. I said yeah. He nodded like that was quaint, then launched into a story about some collector who dropped $7,800 on a limited edition pilot's watch without blinking. He told it like a punchline, but made sure to say the number twice. Bryony asked if he had venue suggestions. He didn't even pretend to think. "Old textile mill north of town. Killer light," he said, ticking off a list like he'd prepared it. "Rooftop on Franklin, plus a winery an hour out that photographs like Tuscany. I'll make a call." His hand brushed her shoulder as he reached for the wine. He poured her glass full, topped off mine with a splash. Casual, performed. Then came the catalog. He slid it over like a magician palming a card. Bryony opened it. There was a sticky note inside that said, "Dress code, simple, expensive." She laughed, said, "Oh man, this guy," but didn't move the catalog from where her hand rested on it. I tried to shift the energy. Told them about a patient I'd seen that week, this older guy who brought his own crossword puzzle to pre-op just to stay calm. Said it reminded me to slow down, listen more. Ansel jumped in with something louder. A gallery opening next Thursday. Invite only. Perfect crowd. Bryony's eyes lit up like it was a backstage pass. Walking home, she couldn't stop talking about the winery. "Imagine a jazz trio out there," she said, "with the vines behind us and like everyone in cream linen." "Sounds nice," I said. She smiled. "See? Your brother gets it." That line stuck. It was meant as a compliment, but it landed like a jab I didn't know I'd earned. Over the next few weeks, Ansel's invitations didn't stop. Studio tours with wine spritzers, whiskey tastings full of people who said notes instead of flavors, a silent auction where he introduced Bryony to a board member like he was giving her away. Every invite had both our names, but half the time he texted her directly for logistics. I wanted to say something. Instead, I watched her start to say, "We should ask Ansel about napkins, hotel blocks, honeymoon plans, and eventually even my suit." Late one night, after she fell asleep on the couch, I cleaned up and found a receipt in her tote. 2 seats at a chef's table downtown. 4 courses. Wine pairings. The date was a Tuesday. I'd been at the hospital. When I asked her about it, she laughed. "Client thing," she said. "Boring. Just food." I nodded. Because I wanted to sleep. Because I didn't want to fight with a woman who made everything else feel lighter. A week later, my phone buzzed in the locker room between cases. Ansel had sent a photo. Bryony, in a vintage off-white dress, taken in what looked like his shop. The caption read, "Screams gallery bride, right?" She'd sent back 3 fire emojis. Nothing else. Just that. I stared at the screen until the lights above me started to hum. That night, I asked Bryony what she thought about cutting the guest list down. Keep it intimate. Maybe even skip the winery. She tilted her head like I'd missed a memo. "What? But Ansel's already checking availability for July 15th. You said June felt rushed." I hadn't said that. Not exactly, but I nodded anyway. "Yeah," I said. "Sure, July's fine." Bryony stopped answering after a Wednesday night. We'd been comparing chair rentals over takeout when she left to meet a vendor, and then nothing. The next morning, my first text got a read receipt and no reply. By afternoon, My calls went to voicemail. I told myself she was tired, maybe stressed, maybe just unplugging for a day. Then I told myself nothing, because silence has a way of teaching you what excuses can't. Work closed in like a vice. 12 straight days of back-to-back shifts, 2 emergencies, 1 bowel resection that went sideways at midnight. My head lived under fluorescent lights. Between cases, I sent messages, 14 texts, 9 calls. You okay? Call me. Talk to me. Each one disappeared into that same cold quiet. By day 10, I stopped checking my phone between every suture. By day 12, I hated myself for still checking. Ansel texted once. You good? I replied, yeah. That was the lie I didn't know how to stop telling. By day 19, the city air felt like static. I was walking down the esplanade toward the dry cleaner, scrubs under my coat, hangers biting my fingers. I saw them before they saw me, Ansel and Bryony, arm in arm, laughing about something that made her tilt her head back. She was wearing that off-white vintage dress from the photo he'd sent, the one I'd pretended didn't bother me. He carried a shopping bag from a high-end interior store, swinging it like proof of something he'd won. He saw me first. His face flickered, like a man trying to turn a stumble into choreography. Bryony froze a second behind him, then forced her smile back on like she'd rehearsed it. My hand went numb around the hangers. I think one of the plastic covers tore. I didn't speak, didn't ask, didn't perform for anyone watching. I turned left at the crosswalk and kept walking. Each step was its own command. Don't stop, don't turn, don't look back. The soles of my shoes burned before I realized I'd walked 3 miles past my apartment. I tossed the dry cleaning in a trash can because I couldn't stand the sound of the hangers clacking. A month and a half later, someone slipped a folded magazine page under my locker door. No note, just the clipping. A society section photo of Ansel and Bryony, married at some restored carriage house outside Columbus. The caption said, "Modern Glamour." I read it twice, like repetition could make it less absurd. My name was nowhere near it. The write-up called it a small, tasteful ceremony. It read like an elopement wrapped in public relations. I sat on the bench outside the locker room until the clock clicked into the next hour. No one talked to me. Maybe they knew. In the hallway, a nurse said, "Rough morning?" And I said, something like that. That was all I could manage. Mom called that night. Her voice was quiet, soft in that stitched-together way she got when she was trying not to push. "Sweetheart, I saw something online. Are you okay?" "I've got a full rotation," I said. "Can we talk later?" She hesitated. "Of course, just call when you can." Dad left a voicemail the next day. "Take care of your center, son. Don't do something dumb." His version of a hug. The dumb thing I almost did was walk into Ansel's boutique and put a watch through the front glass. I even drove there once, sat in the car outside while his window display glowed like nothing had ever gone wrong. My hand was on the door handle when I pictured my dad's face, his steady disappointment, the years he spent paying off debt dollar by dollar. I put the car in reverse and drove home without the radio on. That night I opened my laptop and gave my landlord notice. Listed my couch online and sold it for cash within 2 days. Packed 3 boxes, clothes, books, my surgical loops, and sent them to storage. Everything else I either trashed or left on the curb. I couldn't stand seeing anything she'd touched. At the hospital, I missed one post-op debrief. Dr. Crane found me in the hall, his expression all blade and no handle. "You don't need to be okay," he said. "You need to be precise. If you can't be precise today, go home and sleep. Come back when your hands stop shaking." I nodded. Couldn't even tell if I was shaking until he said it. That afternoon I sat outside the ER on a cement bench under a buzzing light, the kind that makes everyone look half sick. I watched the sky turn that pale gray you only get in late fall, and I didn't cry. I didn't feel anything clear enough to name, just this low-grade hum under my ribs, like a motor left running. 2 weeks later, a recruiter from Northwest Regional called. Said a surgical oncology research fellowship slot had opened in Spokane. starting next month. Your attending gave us your name, she said. It's competitive. Are you interested? Yes, I said, before my brain caught up to my mouth. It was the first real decision I'd made in weeks. That night, I boxed the last of my things, taped them shut, labeled nothing. I wrote my mom a note with my new address and slipped it into her mailbox on my way out of town. I didn't leave one for Ansel. Didn't leave a forwarding request either. Let him send mail to a ghost. When I hit the interstate, the sky was clear enough to see the first edge of winter stars. I rolled the window down and felt the air cut my face open in the best way possible. I kept driving until the map turned to mountains, and the noise finally went quiet. I got into Spokane after dark, late fall, headlights bouncing off wet pavement, and the kind of cold that presses through your jacket like it owns the place. My rental was a 2-bedroom off South Hill, wood floors that creaked, a cracked tile by the fridge, and a view of actual trees instead of rooftops dressed up for someone else's wedding. It wasn't a showpiece, but it was mine, and the silence didn't accuse me of anything. Northwest Regional's oncology wing sat at the edge of a river bluff and ran like a machine you didn't interrupt. Dr. Sabina Poltdale was the director, 38, sharp-eyed, always looked like she knew the answer before you asked. She introduced herself with a handshake that didn't overstay its welcome and said, "Boundaries save careers." I nodded, not because I understood, but because I needed to. She laid out expectations like you'd lay out tools before a hard job, one by one, in order, no frills. Here, you earn space by not wasting time. That clear? I said it was. Dr. Crane had already greased the wheels without telling me. A friend of his worked in admin here and vouched for me. I didn't ask for the favor, but I didn't reject it either. When I ran into Crane again at a conference, he clapped my shoulder and said, "Leave your temper at the door. Keep your spine." That was the only advice he ever gave twice. First week on call, I met Stacy Keats, the head OR nurse. Mid-40s, kept a lanyard full of coffee punch cards and a running joke about post-op notes. She handed me a granola bar at 3 a.m., like it was part of orientation. "Eat now or faint later," she said. "Your call." I took the bar. Then there was Oliver White, button-downs that fit like they were measured twice, nice shoes, and a memory like a steel trap. He ran point on grants and compliance and knew every policy number by heart. He also said compliance like it was a shield you held with both hands in a storm. First week, he flagged my ID badge photo for being too scowly and told me not to scare the donors. I took my first patient consult that Thursday. Luis Moran, 15, bone cancer, sarcastic from the jump. "Is this where I get a bionic leg?" he asked before I'd even opened the chart. I said no, but I could promise him better jokes. He grinned and said, "Then I guess I'll live." We bonded fast. He wanted to build bikes after all this. I told him I'd hold him to it. He asked if I could bring him a granola bar like Keats gave the real surgeons. I brought 2 the next day. Spokane had a farmer's market on Saturdays, all canvas tents and rain-warped chalkboards. One stall sold old watches, laid out like coins from a shipwreck. I passed it every week. Never stopped. It felt like walking past a bruise that didn't hurt anymore. Nights, I ran the Centennial Trail. Heavy legs, clear lungs. I didn't bring music, just the sound of shoes on dirt and the river tracking beside me. I rehearsed conversations I'd never have, with Ansel, with Bryony. Sometimes I spoke out loud, just enough to hear the words. Sabina didn't praise you, but she didn't waste feedback either. After I scrubbed in on a tough resection and kept my head while the cautery fried out mid-procedure, she said, "Good tempo." That was all. That meant more than a paragraph of compliments. She started giving me harder cases, a little more autonomy, always followed by a debrief at the cheap coffee kiosk downstairs. "Your prep was tight," she'd say, or, "Next time, move before you explain." Every word meant something. Nothing was filler. A month in, I got a box from Mom. No return note, just a photo of Dad at my Little League game, whistle around his neck, his hand half raised like he was about to wave. She tucked in a card that said, "We're okay. Come home when you can." I put the photo on the shelf by the door, next to my keys. Every night I said goodnight to it like I was 12 again. By the time I turned 31, I had a rhythm. Early rounds, late shifts, burgers at a place that didn't ask questions, Saturday hangouts with Luis, and a volunteer named Dawn, who taught him basic welding in the rehab garage. I started sleeping through the night without bolting upright at 3 a.m., thinking I'd left something open, an incision, a window, a life. I didn't Google Ansel. I didn't check Bryony's Instagram. I blocked the boutique's feed and never opened the wedding gallery link my cousin sent me. Life got smaller on the outside, quieter. But inside, it stretched out. I could breathe there. Luis finished his first weld 3 weeks after starting, held it up like a trophy and said, "It's crooked, but it's mine." I told him that's how most good things start. One day, I passed that watch stall again and noticed a kid pointing out a piece to his dad. The man nodded, handed over bills, and the kid lit up like it was Christmas. I kept walking. Didn't feel like regret. Didn't feel like anything, really. And that was new. I was still angry sometimes. Still found myself balling my fists in elevators or gripping a pen until the ink broke. But the world wasn't blurry anymore. I could chart a full day without forgetting what I'd written. I could hear someone say wedding and not flinch. That felt like something earned. When Luis asked me what I did before Spokane, I said, worked, tried, moved on. He nodded like that made sense. He didn't need the rest of the story. Neither did I. Oliver cornered me by the supply cabinet one morning, clipboard in hand, blazer too clean for an OR hallway. "You're coming to the gala," he said, like I'd already agreed. "Wear something with a collar, and smile at people, not near them." I ironed a shirt the night before and told myself not to scowl. The name tag looked like it belonged to someone more charming. I showed up late enough to miss the donor speeches, and early enough to get cornered by a board member talking about capital campaigns like they were battle plans. The ballroom was all muted up lighting and wine that tasted like obligation. The salmon somehow cost $40 a bite and came with a fennel garnish I pushed to the side. I stood by the silent auction table pretending to care about a weekend at Priest Lake and a framed print of a mountain I could already see from the staff lounge. Sabina found me there, arms crossed, wine glass untouched. She glanced at the print. "You realize that's just Mount Spokane and better lighting?" I nodded. "Same view we get for free, with vending machine coffee." She smiled once, barely. "What do you think about expanding patient navigation services?" "Honestly, we need it. Luis's mom is still working double shifts and missing consults. Half the families in our unit don't know what they're eligible for." Sabina didn't blink. "Give me names. Give me specifics. I don't care about drama. I care about data." She wasn't dismissing it. She was planning. We talked work, real work. She listened like a machine operator listening for stress in the gears. No filler, no fake concern, just signal, no noise. A man with too many rings and not enough chin asked if we'd be open to using his cousin's innovative supplement company in our treatment protocols. Sabina didn't even hesitate. "We follow evidence," she said flatly. "But thank you for the offer." That was the end of it. I liked that. Later, standing near the exits, watching people leave with their raffle prizes and overpriced art prints, she said, "You do the medicine, I do the boundary setting. Deal?" "Deal," I said, and we shook like we were swapping keys to the building. A week later, she asked if I wanted to join a staff hike on Saturday. "Easy pace," she said. "Bring your own granola and don't be weird about trail shoes." The trail was packed dirt, pine needles, no ceremony. She kept the conversation low and wide. Music she liked in college, her mom's recipe for sweet potatoes, baseball teams she didn't care about but followed anyway. No probing, no confessions, just soft edges. At one point she stopped at a bend in the trail, looked up at the branches and said, "I have a rule about not dating inside the department. I keep it. I nodded. I respect that. She looked at me a second longer and said, I know. And we walked another mile in silence. It was the kind of silence that doesn't itch. On a Tuesday, she covered my afternoon clinic shift so I could sit with Luis during a rough infusion. He was pale and shaking, but still managed to call me Dr. Sad Eyes for bringing him the wrong flavor Gatorade. When I got back to my desk, there was a thermos of soup with a Post-it stuck to it. Sabina's handwriting, "Eat this, or Keats will kill us both." Dr. Crane came through that week to give grand rounds, caught me outside the auditorium, gave me a once-over like he was scanning for hairline fractures. "Better," he said. "Keep your head down. Build." That was all I needed to hear. By the time the snow started showing up in morning footprints, Sabina and I had settled into something that didn't need defining. We didn't talk about us, but the way we looked at each other, during debriefs, across the OR, over terrible coffee, felt like more than just respect. We didn't touch it. Some things grow best when you don't poke them every 5 minutes. Then Oliver pulled me into a grant discussion with a local foundation looking to fund support services. I brought clean data, bullet points, and one story about Luis. How his mom slept in a folding chair just to stay close. That's all I said. That's all I needed to. We landed $185,000. Afterwards, Sabina passed me in the hallway. "Good work," she said. From her, that landed like a medal. That night, I walked past the old tavern where interns used to blow off steam. Music pulsed behind the windows. I kept going. Not because I was avoiding anything, but because the quiet I was walking toward finally felt like mine. The subject line just read, "Proposal for Art and Healing Initiative. A. Pierce Consulting." The sender was some generic Gmail address with no signature, no company logo, just a 3-page PDF attached like it was a flyer for a community potluck. I opened it, read the first paragraph, and felt my whole body lock up. Ansel had found the hospital, and through it, he'd found me. The proposal was slick, well-formatted, full-color mock-ups, artsy renderings of sculptures and installation plans for the atrium. The dollar amount jumped off the page, $240,000 for rotating curated exhibits and acquisition of signature pieces to elevate donor engagement. It was pretty, it was polished, and it said almost nothing about actual patients. 40 minutes later, Oliver flagged it. He forwarded it back with one line. "Is this family?" I typed, "Yes, I will recuse entirely." Then I CC'd Sabina. That's how you keep the walls up before someone else tries to knock them down. She called me into her office the next morning, blinds half drawn, coffee going cold on the corner of her desk. She didn't sit, just leaned against the edge and crossed her arms. "We don't take family-linked proposals without an independent review and a full firewall. You did the right thing," she said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't casual. She knew what it cost me. Oliver met me in the corridor after. "Are you okay stepping out of anything where your name could come up? Calls, meetings, side notes, anything?" "Yeah," I said. "Absolutely." "Good," he said. "I'll bring in an external evaluator. We'll run a conflict memo and log it all, clean from the jump." I thanked him, not just for doing it right, but for making sure I didn't have to carry it all by myself. That night, Ansel called from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring out. The voicemail was short, familiar in that smug way he always used when he thought he had leverage. "It's time, little brother. Don't be small." I stared at my phone until the screen went black. 2 days later, he showed up in person. I'd just finished rounds and stopped at the coffee cart in the lobby when I heard him behind me, loud, charming, like he never left. 3 of the volunteers turned at the sound of his voice. "David," he said, drawing it out like a punchline. Then he hugged me. Full-on hug. I didn't move. My hands stayed at my sides like they were tied down. "We'll go through proper channels," I said. He pulled back, smiling too wide. "Come on. I just want to help make the place less Institutional. Send everything to Oliver, I said, already turning away. Don't be like this, he added, still behind me. This is good work. It's not about us. I didn't answer. Just walked toward the stairwell because the elevator felt like too much containment for that moment. That afternoon, Sabina found me outside the OR, arms still damp from scrubbing out. She handed me a disposable coffee and said, I appreciate your boundaries. Then, after a beat, she added, this will get louder before it gets quiet. She was right. That night, at exactly 11:43, my phone buzzed. A message from Bryony. Can we talk? It's not what you think. I didn't respond. I didn't even open the thread. I flipped the phone over and pushed it across the table. Sometimes not answering is the only answer that keeps your hands from shaking. The external review came back 3 days later. It was brutal in the best way. No frills, no cushioning, just facts. Proposal lacks measurable patient outcome data. Budget is top-heavy. Potential for donor confusion due to visible familial connection. Not recommended. Oliver declined it by letter. It was 2 paragraphs. He copied the board. It didn't invite discussion. It didn't apologize. It was clean. Ansel didn't call again that week, but I saw the ripple. He posted a photo to his boutique's account, some high-end pilot watch laid across a catalog. The caption said, when local institutions miss their moment, private collectors win. Hashtagged with art matters and curated impact. I stared at it for exactly 3 seconds, then scrolled past. No like, no message, no flare-up of blood behind my eyes. Just nothing. I shut off the app. At lunch, I sat with Keats and Luis, who was recovering from his latest round and wanted to know if his hair would grow back curlier. Keats said if it did, he'd look like a backup singer from the 70s. Luis called her mean and asked me if I'd still let him weld stuff. I said, only if you pass your math test first. That was the kind of day I wanted more of, loud in the right ways and silent where it counted. Thursday afternoon, I was peeling off gloves when Stacy poked her head into the lounge. Your pre-op patient's ride is in the consult room asking for you. Said she knows you. I wiped my hands, tossed the gloves, and headed down the hall. The door was cracked open. I pushed it the rest of the way and saw her. Bryony. She was sitting in the corner chair like it was a courtroom, hands folded over a leather tote, back straight, eyes locked on mine like a challenge. For a second I felt the floor tilt. Then it leveled. My aunt, she said, nodding toward the older woman beside her. She's here for the scope. I drove her in. Her tone was clean, rehearsed, not too warm, not too cold. I turned to the aunt, explained the procedure, walked through pre-op and post-op, told her when to expect anesthesia and when she could eat again. I kept it professional, same cadence I used for every consult. My voice stayed even. That's a muscle you build, or it fails you when you need it most. When the aunt was cleared and the nurse came to take her back, Bryony stayed behind, still sitting, still staring. Can we talk? She asked. 5 minutes, off the record. I paused, then pointed toward the vending machines. We can talk by the snack machines. If life's taught me anything, it's where to stand. We walked down the hall. I stopped by the humming bank of Coke buttons and stuck my hands in my coat pockets. She leaned against the wall, not close. I didn't know you worked here, she said. I didn't bother pretending to believe that. She looked tired but polished, like someone keeping up a brand even under stress. Her eyes searched my face for something, but I didn't offer anything. Ansel's different now, she said, voice lower. The shop runs him. It's nonstop, deadlines, drops, events. I thought it would be fun. It's not. It's a treadmill. I nodded once. No reaction. No anchor. She glanced down. I miss your quiet, the way you made things feel simple. I let the pause stretch. I hope your aunt does fine with anesthesia, I said. She seems tough. She stepped closer, barely, reached for my sleeve. I took one step back. Not loud, not dramatic. Just enough. Don't, I said. She froze, then nodded like she'd expected it, but still had to try. For 1 second, I saw the girl who sat on a green bench in the summer, talking about linen suits and golden light. Then it vanished, and I was looking at someone else. Stacy came down the hallway carrying a clipboard and a pack of gum. She tossed me the gum and said, "Professional to the bone, doctor. You want a stripe for that sleeve or just a cookie?" I grinned. It slipped out before I could stop it. The case went fine. No complications. The aunt did well. I checked on her in recovery, updated the chart, then found Bryony in the waiting area and told her when the discharge nurse would call. She nodded, said thank you. No extra words. I appreciated that. After they left, I went back to charting in the main office. Sabina walked in, leaned against the counter and asked, "You good?" "Fine," I said. "Anything I need to know?" "Nope." She studied me for a second, then gave a short nod. "Good work," she said, and walked off. That night I ran the trail harder than usual, pushed until my legs burned and the cold hit my lungs like a filter. I stood at the river after, hands on my knees, and didn't feel like I was drowning. Progress can be as simple as not answering a message, or not asking a question you already know the answer to. 2 days later, a bouquet showed up at the nurse's station. No fancy ribbon, just clean white paper and a typed card. It was addressed to the care team. No mention of me. The note read, "Thanks to the calm doctor for keeping it steady. You helped more than you know." Stacy read it aloud and said, "Well, this is getting pinned to the bulletin board. I'm claiming the flowers, though." "Fair," I said. "They match your sarcasm." I slept through the night after that. Woke up hungry for once. I made toast and stood in my kitchen watching the sun hit the pine needles out back. Quiet has a sound when you earn it. Mom called on a gray Monday. I was reviewing charts, pen in hand, when her voice broke through the line. "It was quick," she said. "The paramedics tried, but he was in the garage. He didn't suffer." I sat down on the floor next to the filing cabinet like someone had pulled a plug in my chest. I don't remember what I said, just that she cried quietly, and I stayed on the line until she didn't. I flew back to Westfield, Ohio, the town where you wave even if you don't like someone. 3 stoplights, 1 high school, and a diner that still used the same scratched-up mugs from the 1990s. Sabina offered to come the second I told her. I said yes before I even thought about it. At Carver and Day Funeral Home, I signed the guest book by the entry table. 2 lines above mine, Ansel Pierce. Then just below that, Bryony Court Pierce. The names were written tight, tidy, like signatures on a contract. The pen felt heavier in my hand than it should have. Dad looked smaller in the casket, hands folded like he was holding something invisible. Peaceful in a way I hadn't seen since his last good summer, when he still whistled around the house and labeled everything twice. I leaned in close and told him I was sorry for staying gone so long, that I was trying to be a decent man, that I hoped he'd be proud. That was all I had. Ansel came in like a camera flash. Big hug for Mom. Loud story for the room. Bryony stayed 3 steps behind him, wearing a black dress that could have paid someone's mortgage. She looked thinner, or maybe just more expensive. My jaw tightened, then loosened. Sabina arrived quiet, calm, no makeup beyond the bare minimum, her coat buttoned to the collar. She didn't draw attention. She didn't have to. Competence carries in a room full of grief. It steadies people without needing applause. Mrs. Klein from church leaned in and whispered to Mom, "Your boy did good." I heard murmurs about the cancer center in Washington, and those rooms he got built. A few people asked Sabina soft questions. She answered with respect and no extra polish. People noticed. Ansel finally made his way to me, smile on his face, eyes empty. "Tough week," he said. "Dad deserved better," I replied, and let the silence grow long enough to make him shift. He didn't answer. Mr. Daly, one of Dad's old friends from the high school maintenance crew, found me near the chapel doors. He pressed a thick envelope into my hand. It had Dad's handwriting on the front, cramped and slanted. It was notarized. I put it in my jacket pocket without opening it. Not yet. During the receiving line, people said things that made my throat clench. He always bragged about you. Kept your articles in a drawer by the kitchen phone. Said you made hard days make sense. I didn't have words for how that landed, somewhere between comfort and guilt. Outside, the wind was sharp, grass stiff from the freeze. Sabina stood with my mom by the flagpoles, talking like old friends. When I walked up, Mom squeezed my arm and said, "You brought good with you." I had to swallow twice before I could nod. When most of the crowd had cleared out, I walked back toward Ansel and Bryony. They were standing under a tree near the parking lot, not speaking. She looked up first. "I don't hate either of you," I said, flat and true. Ansel raised his eyebrows slightly. Bryony looked down. I turned to him. "You still have time to be better. You want to start today? That's your choice." His face worked through 4 expressions before settling on none. Back at Mom's house, I made tea I didn't drink. Took the envelope out of my coat and sat down at the dining table, the one with water rings from 100 meals that didn't matter until now. The letter was 3 pages, all handwritten. He wrote about the time I fixed a lawnmower with him in 7th grade, about how proud he'd been when he heard I sat with a scared patient for 3 hours because no one else had time, about the article he clipped when my research got cited by that Boston journal. He'd signed the bottom, but just above that was one last line. "Don't confuse revenge with goals." I folded the pages slowly, put them back in the envelope, slid it into the inside pocket of my blazer like it was body armor. Not because I needed protection, but because I needed to carry something that reminded me what kind of man I wanted to keep being. After the funeral, Ansel caught me by the side gate, hands in his coat pockets like he was just some guy from the neighborhood. "Just us," he said. 5 minutes. We walked around the block in silence. I waited for him to drop the charm, and he didn't waste time. "I want an intro to your foundation team," he said. "We've reworked the arts and healing pitch. Clean slate, tighter scope, new numbers. It could land better now." I looked straight ahead. "No. You didn't even hear it. I don't need to. I already explained why." He laughed under his breath. "Still hiding behind policy. Seriously, David. Policy keeps people honest," I said, "especially when feelings get messy. This isn't about hiding. It's about not getting dirty. I'm trying to do something that matters. Then start somewhere that doesn't involve me." He hated how calm I was. That always got under his skin. The quiet, the refusal to rise. He stopped walking. "You've changed," he said, but it didn't sound like a compliment. I nodded once. "Yeah, that's the point." A week later, back in Spokane, Oliver pulled me into his office and shut the door behind him. "3 messages from a consultant on Ansel's behalf," he said, showing me the call log. I documented and declined each one. "Thanks," I said. "I appreciate being able to focus on my job without policing my past." "You've got a good firewall," he replied. "That's worth something." Sabina and I kept our heads down. We finished a full proposal for the Regional Family Housing Fund. 10 rooms near the hospital, fast turnover, no paperwork games. 48 hours, no questions. We got a meeting at the state level. She handed me the data sheets. I handled the stories. We didn't need anything else. Luis rang the bell that Friday, his mom standing beside him, clapping through tears. He was gangly and grinning and already wearing a hoodie from the bike shop where he'd landed a part-time gig. "I saved a busted gear," he said, digging into his coat pocket. "Wanted to make it into a keychain. Thought you'd like something ugly that works." "I'll use it," I told him, and meant it. That weekend, a package showed up from Mom, Dad's old tool belt, leather worn smooth where his hands used to rest. I hung it in my closet. Every morning before rounds, I touched the top of the strap. Silly. Sentimental. Didn't matter. It made me walk taller. News about Ansel trickled in through someone's cousin. The boutique had a cash squeeze. One of the vendors posted something bitter about unpaid invoices. Bryony's Instagram stopped updating. No captions. No reels. Just silence. I didn't look into it. Let the details go fuzzy around the edges. Oliver arranged a meeting with a donor, a retired architect who collected vintage watches and wanted to give some of them a better afterlife. He asked if I was comfortable taking the lead. I laughed. Yeah, I think I'm ready to put some of that history to work. We raised $62,500 from 3 pieces. The messaging wrote itself, time that pays for time together. Sabina smirked when she saw it on the print materials. I took the win and didn't overthink it. Late one night, my phone buzzed. Bryony. I'm sorry I came to the hospital. I didn't know what I wanted. I hope you're doing well. I stared at the screen, typed out 3 responses, deleted each one, slept on it. In the morning I wrote, take care of yourself, and hit send. Ansel reached out a few days later. I can donate a piece. 10 grand easy. Say the word. It felt like an olive branch, or maybe just bait. Either way, I took the high road. Send it to Oliver. He'll coordinate everything, keep me out of it. I hoped he'd follow through. Just one decent thing. Just once. 2 days later, Oliver knocked on my office door. Your brother pulled the watch, said he had a private sale pending, told me our fundraiser didn't match his brand. I didn't react. I just closed the text thread and stood up, grabbed my hoodie and ran the trail until my lungs burned and my ribs hurt and the air tasted like something clean. When I got home, I dug out the busted gear Luis gave me and hooked it to my keyring. Ugly, solid, honest. It fit just fine in my hand. 5 years after Dad's funeral, we held the family room's expansion dedication on a cool Friday in May. The space sat behind the hospital, tucked between the service drive and a patch of maple trees that threw shade like a benediction. Stacy set out folding chairs in rows, humming something off-key, while she lit fake candles and cussed at the wind. Oliver circled twice with the donor list, checking names like Santa with spreadsheets and a mild hangover. Sabina took the mic first. No fanfare, no big words, just clean language and purpose. She talked about a night when a mom can't get home and a child's IV drip won't wait. When gas money disappears behind a missed paycheck and a room with clean sheets means the difference between despair and holding it together. Sabina didn't cry. She never did. She just said things in a way that made other people cry, then pull out their checkbooks. I followed her and told a short story about Luis and his mom, how they sat together over vending machine breakfast after a bad night, how the quiet room let that happen with dignity. I didn't use names, didn't need to. It was about what mattered. Rest without shame, warmth without questions. After I stepped down, the watch collector in the tweed jacket raised a hand during open remarks and said he wanted to buy back one of the pieces he'd donated, at a markup. He handed it to a nurse whose husband rebuilt watches for fun. Everyone clapped, not politely, but like something had just made sense. Later, I opened an envelope from Mom. Inside was a check for $137 and a note that said, "For Malcolm's kids, in case one of them shows up scared." It hit harder than the 5-figure gifts. I folded it carefully and slid it between the grant reports on my desk. I could hear Dad's words in my head again. Don't confuse revenge with goals, and felt the needle in me shift, steady and sure. Off to the side, by the tree line, I saw Bryony, hair pulled back, coat collar up. She didn't step forward, and I didn't wave. But we shared a nod that said we weren't those people anymore. That was enough. Ansel didn't show. I didn't expect him to. That night he posted a story from some city I didn't care to name. Him in front of a pop-up shop, a line out the door, captioned "Curated Life." It used to sting, used to make me wonder what I was missing. Now it felt like a bus going somewhere I had no business chasing. After the crowd thinned and the lights dimmed, Sabina and I stacked chairs together in the dusk. She bumped her shoulder into mine and said, "You did good." I looked at her. You did better. She smirked. I know. And we left it at that because old power lives in not over-talking a decent day. As we walked out, I passed by the admin office. Taped to the glass was a printed sheet. Family rooms, open, 16 of 20. It wasn't everything, but it was real. It was ours. It would grow. Back home, I pulled out Dad's notarized letter from the drawer, read it all the way through again. The last line still hit the hardest. Keep your hands steady and your heart clean. I'm trying, Dad, I said to the quiet room. Then I turned out the light without checking my phone. The best revenge I ever got wasn't loud. It was clean sheets. 2 keystrokes on a grant application. A new policy I wrote and stuck to. When your past knocks, answer like a professional, or not at all. Either way, keep moving toward the work. In the morning, Luis met me by the bike rack. He tapped the busted gear keychain hanging from my bag. Still using it? He asked, grinning. Of course, I said, but I think I owe you a burger. He held up 2 fingers. Then I'll take 2. No lettuce. We laughed like 2 guys who'd earned it. Hey, real quick before you scroll, let me ask you something. When someone from your past reaches out, do you let them start over or guard the calm you've built? If you've got hype, tap it to help this story reach more people who need it. Don't forget to subscribe and like. It means a lot and only takes a second. And drop a comment, even just good story, or tell me what you would have done in his shoes. Love you guys.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.